Hello, this is Justin at the Tech Train here again, and welcome to the 9th installment of the series looking at getting started with programming using Small Basic. In this tutorial, we're going to be looking at random numbers. We have mentioned random numbers briefly in the past, and we're also going to be combining it with selection, which we looked at in tutorial number 8. So check those out if you haven't seen those already, but let's have a little look at how we can do random numbers. In order to get a random number in Small Basic, we can use the math library. And within that, if we press a dot, we can see that we have a get random number action here. And all that needs in brackets after it is the highest value number that we want to be able to choose. So if I wrote a 10 in those brackets, that would allow me to get a random number between 1 and 10, inclusive of both those numbers. So that would be 1 all the way through to 10. Now, of course, if I was to generate a random number, that by itself is fairly pointless. So what we generally do is assign that random number to a variable. So in this case, what I've done is put that random number into a variable I've called num. Let's turn this into a very simple little game here. So we have a random number put into the variable num. We don't know as the user what that number will be. So let's now see if we can get the user to guess. So we'll put some instructions on the screen first of all. So we'll have a text window dot write line. I am thinking of a number between 1 and 10. Okay, now we'll have a guess as a variable which will store whatever the user types into the text window. So we'll read what the user has written, put it into the text from the text window, put it into the variable guess, and now we have to set up some kind of a loop. This loop is going to keep on prompting the user to enter a new guess until the number they guess is correct. Now, think about the loops that we looked at in tutorial number 6. In that video, we thought about the two different types of loops. That would be the definite loop and the indefinite loop. And we thought about the different words that we used. So for the definite loop, it was for, and for the indefinite loop, it was while. And in this situation here, we want one of these two loops. Have a think about which one we're going to need. So a for loop is a definite loop that repeats code a set number of times. We know in advance as a programmer exactly how many times we're going to have to repeat that block of code, whereas while is an indefinite loop which will repeat code a number of times, but we don't know how many times we're going to have to repeat it. So if your guess is that we need a while loop, you're absolutely correct. So here what we're going to do is set up a while loop and say while the user's guess does not equal the num we're guessing, we're going to have to keep on repeating, first of all, some text to tell the user that they are wrong. So we'll do a little bit of write line here. Sorry, guess again. And then of course we need to make sure that they have another chance to enter their guess. So we'll do another read from the text window, put that back into the guess variable, and that's it. We can end our while loop. So that will keep on repeating until the user's guess is right. Of course, if they guess correctly here, and let's say that num contains the number 5, and the user happened to enter the number 5 that was stored in guess, well, guess is equal to num, therefore this indefinite loop would not run because that condition there is not true. Guess is not equal to num, in fact it's equal to num, so we don't do this loop. So remember, an indefinite loop will only run if the condition at the top here has not yet been met. But of course, either we'll be skipping that loop if they get it right, or eventually, we assume somewhere in here, the user will put the correct one in and this loop will end. At which point we can put congratulations message, so text window dot write line, and we can say correct. I was thinking of, and why don't we add a little bit of concatenation here and just simply add to that whatever the variable was, whatever the number rather was stored in the variable num. Okay, let's have a look at how this program works. So I am thinking of a number between 1 and 10. I'm going to guess 5. Nope, it's not right. Let's guess again. I'm going to guess 3. No. 7. No. 1. No. 9. And I have no idea, of course, what it is. What have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and what have I got? 10 left. There we are. So it was thinking of 10, which I think was my 10th guess. That was a very bad guess on my part. Let's try that one more time. So think of number. Let's try 5. No, 1. Oh, there we are. Got it on my second turn. So I was thinking of 1. There we go. So you can see how the random numbers are different each time. And you can see how we can embed that into a very simple guessing game. Not perhaps the most exciting game in the world, but it's a demonstration of how we can use random numbers. And of course, if we wanted to make the game easier, we could change this number so that it was only between 1 and 5, say. Or we could make it much harder, of course, and do it between 1 and 100. But if we were going to do that, we'd probably need to give the user a little bit more help. And that's what we're going to look at in just a second. Before we get on to that, have a little go at doing this program yourself. So pause the video in just a second, have a go at writing that code out yourself without looking at the video screen. If you make a mistake, not to worry, have a little go at correcting it. We'll come back and have a look at my code, which you can see on the board, on the screen right now. And once you feel that you've got that and it's working, then come right back and we'll look at extending this game now to making it a little bit more interesting. So, ready to pause the video? Off you go. And let's carry on then now. So, hopefully you had some success with that. If not, then not to worry. If you made mistakes, that's absolutely fine and quite normal with programming. So what we're going to do here now is extend the game. So we're going to say that it's now going to be a number between 1 and 100. Let's just change the instruction over here as well. So this is going to be a lot harder, of course, to guess. So we have a random number between 1 and 100. We're going to now get the user to enter their guess, and we'll store that in the variable guess again. And we'll still have this loop here that says whilst guessing. In fact, actually, tell you what we're going to do. No, we're not. Let's get rid of that loop. Because we looked at loops, but in the last video that we looked at, number 8, we used selection. So let's use selection here to begin with. So we're going to say if, and we're going to say that if the guess is less than the num that the user is thinking of, then what are we going to do? Well, we'll put some text on the screen which tells the user that they're guessing too low. So let's have a write line here, too low, guess again. Let's have an else if. So else if guess is greater than num, then. And we'll have here a line that says too high. So we'll say too high, guess again. So now if they're wrong, then we're going to be able to tell them whether they are too low or too high. So we'll do an end if there, that's the end of it. But of course there is one other option. Now that option is that they are correct. However, this block of code here, this selection, is going to have to be repeated probably several times. It's unlikely they're going to get it right first time. So we're going to have to repeat that a number of times. And again, we don't know how many times we're going to have to repeat this block of code. So now we've helped the user a little bit by giving them some feedback, saying if their guess was too low, less than the number we're thinking of, tell them it's too low. Else, if the guess is too high, then tell them it's too high. So we've got that little bit in here. But the third option that we've not included in this selection statement is that the guess is correct. So what we're going to do here is have a while loop that says while the guess is incorrect, so it's not equal to none, then we're going to do all of this. We'll end our loop there, because now we're going to find ourselves in the position that we'll only get to line 11 here when this loop has ended. In other words, the user has got the number right. So here we can do a text window dot write line that says correct. I was thinking of, and again we'll add some concatenation in there just to make sure that they know what the number was. There we go. So remember, we have a selection statement here that looks to see whether the number they guessed was too low or too high, not whether it was correct, just whether it's too low or too high, and gives them the appropriate feedback. And all of that selection statement is wrapped inside this indefinite loop that keeps saying keep on giving them that feedback of too high or too low for as long as their guess is wrong. But once their guess is no longer wrong, end that loop, go on to the next line and tell them that they were correct. So let's have a look at how this program works. Let's run that. So I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 100. Let's type in 50. Oops, and what have we got? We have a loop that is endless. Now, this is a problem with having indefinite loops. What happens with an indefinite loop, and you see this is, you can see my scroll bar there is continuing to reduce in size. I'll come out of that program now. The problem we've got here is that this indefinite loop is constantly cycling through. Why? What is the mistake that's been made here? Have a think about it, see if you can spot why that indefinite loop is going on forever. And this is a common problem, common mistake with indefinite loops. Okay, so the solution here is that we're not doing anything inside that indefinite loop other than asking the question, is their guess wrong or too high or too low? What we're not doing is giving them any opportunity to change that guess. In other words, we're not asking them to re-enter a second guess. So what we need to do is take this line here that says guess equals, read from the text window, and put that inside our if statement. So what we'll do is we'll paste it underneath that too low guess again, and we'll paste it underneath that too high guess again. So now let's run the program. Think it onto your 1 and 100. Let's type in 50. Too high, so let's guess again about 25. Too low, so it's between 25 and 50. Let's try 35. Too low. Let's try 42. Too high, so it's between 35 and 42. So let's try 38. Too high. 36. Correct, there we are. So I was thinking of 36. So we can see we managed to get that in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guesses. Not too bad. So again, what we'll have a look at doing now is pausing the video for a second and seeing if you can construct this program. So remember, start off with simply getting a random number between whatever it is you like, 1 and 100 if you like, and then making sure that you give some instructions to the user and then read those instructions and put the value into a variable. Then ignore the loop for the moment. Start off constructing your if statement that says, is the number too low? If so, give them feedback, and if it's too high, give them feedback. Then wrap that into your indefinite loop that says if their number is wrong, then keep on doing that, and then finally end it with your correct statement. So have a go at doing that. If you have a problem with the loop, the indefinite loop going on forever, remember that that loop, that indefinite loop, needs to have some sort of break in it so that the loop isn't going on forever. And in this case, we can do that just by simply making sure the user gets a chance to enter their guess again. So have a go at doing that program. And in just a second, what I'll do is look at one more thing, and that is how we can generate a random number that's not between 1 and something, but say it's between 20 and 30. How do we generate a number between 20 and 30 rather than between 1 and something? So we'll look at that in just a second, in a moment. If you'd like to pause the video, and I'll be right here as soon as you've had a go at doing this program. So let's look at how we can generate a random number that's between two different numbers rather than always between 1 and whatever number we put into brackets. So if we were to have a num equals math.getRandomNumber, and we were to put in there 25, that would always generate a random number between 1 and 25. There's no way in which in Small Basic we can say something like between 30 and 50. We can't do something like that. So what do we do then if we don't want to generate a random number that always includes 1 and all the numbers up to what's in brackets? How do we do that? Okay, well, first of all, what we need to do is to think about the range of numbers. Let's say that we want to have numbers between 30 and 50. So how do we generate a number that's between 30 and 50? Well, the first thing we need to do is think about the range between these two numbers. So how many numbers are there between 30 and 50? How many possible different numbers are we able to choose from? And of course the answer is 20. There are 20 numbers between 30 and 50. So if we start off with generating a number between 1 and 20, that of course is going to have enough different numbers to match, but they'll all be too low. So in order to shove those up, what we need to do is then add to that random number whatever the lower of these two numbers is. So in this case, 30. So if I have a random number that is between 1 and 20, but then I add 30 to that number, well, the lowest number that I can generate is 1. So if I then have that 1 and I add 30, I've now got 31. The highest number that I could generate here is 20. And if I take that number 20 and I add it to 30, that gives me 50. So here I am generating numbers between 30 and 50. So if we have a look at how this would work in practice, let's put this inside a loop. So for I equals 1 to 10, we'll then write that random number on the text window. Oops. Dot right line. Just put that on the text window and then end our loop. So let's write this out and see what we've got. So there we are. We've got random numbers now that are between 30 and 50. So the lowest number we've got there is 33, I think, and the highest number is in fact 50. There it is. So if we run this again, you can see 10 different numbers. Again, the lowest number we've got there is 33. Again, the highest is 50, but a different range of numbers. So if we wanted to create a list of random numbers, or create a random number that was between two different numbers, then what you would need to do is put the range in brackets first of all, and then add to that the lower of the two numbers in that range. So as a little practice, what I want you to do is see if you can create a little program like this, which will generate a random number between 40 and 100. So have a go and see if you can create a program that will randomly generate a number between 40 and 100. Now I'm not going to write the code out for that because hopefully you should be able to work that out based on the previous example. So have a go at that, test it, make sure you have this loop here, and then you're generating a whole load of random numbers and you can look through them to make sure that they work for you. So have a go at doing that one. If you have any problems or mistakes, then not to worry, don't panic, just have a look at your errors, have a look at my code, see if you can work that out. And in the next video tutorial, number 10 in the series, we're going to be looking at something called arrays, which are fantastically useful and allow us to start working with lists of information. And we're going to be creating a nice little random name generator for a computer game, and in fact possibly also something that my students at school enjoy doing, and that is a random insult maker. So we're going to be looking at that, combining arrays with random numbers in tutorial number 10, and so I'll look forward to seeing you then.